Dewitty here, and today I'm going to show you even more awesome chord progressions that you can use in your songs. Stick around to the end because I'm going to show you my exact favorite advanced chord progression. And as we go on in each chord progression, I'm going to show you different ways to modify chord progressions so that you can sound even better. So if you haven't watched my most powerful chord progression video, you can watch that next. But for now, I'll go ahead and review what we talked about. So chords are described using Roman numerals. You have in a major scale, that's where we're in D major. So that would be major 1, that would be minor 1, major 5, minor 5. Major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, 5 diminished, 5 augmented, 5 6 4, 5 inverted. So as you can tell, there's a lot of different ways to alter these chord progressions. So we'll start with number 1. So the first one you've probably heard a lot, and that's the Pachelbel chord progression. So it sounds super long and complicated, like its entire song, but really it's just chord progression. Major 1, major 5, minor 6, minor 3, major 4, 1, 4, 5. So I'm using this chord progression to show how you can learn an entire song just by knowing its chord progression. And it's just a chord progression. So that was a pretty simple one. Next, we'll go into a little gospel progression. So this is an example of something that's simple that you can turn advanced. So we have major 1, a 5, a major 3, and then a 1. Sounds interesting, right? But now let's use some inversions and some different chord alternatives to make it sound gospel. We have the 1. I made it a major 7. I actually made it a major 9. And I used a little grace note from that 6 up to the 7. Just walk down to the major 5, to the major 7, to the 5, major 7. And then for that major 3, instead of a major 7, I did sus 2. And of course you could change that up the second time. That's like a sharp 4. That's an interesting chord right there, right? So in gospel, a lot of these things, just passing chords, things like that. That's just walking up to the 5 major 7. There's that G major 9 chord. You have starting that 1, just walk it up. And then I added a little spice, you know what I'm saying? Basically, let's say we're in C major. We're gonna have 1, lowered 7, 4. Again, I'll go more in depth into this kind of stuff in the Modern Music Creator course. But for now, basically, since even though we're in C major, we have a B flat. And normally in C major, we have a B. So basically, we're borrowing that B flat from F major. So, as you can notice, that F almost sounds like 1 in this scenario. So the F almost becomes like a surprise resolution. So our ears are like, okay, we're in C major, cool. Then Then we hear B flat. We're like, and then we hear an F. Not the best explanation, but pretty much. It's basically like you could argue this is a 5, a 4, and a 1. Except you could do it while you're in C major. Which would be 5, 4, 1. But we're in C. So we're going to have 1, flat 7, 4. And the reason you can do this, and the reason this works so well as a modal chord progression, is let's say we're in the middle of a song. We have this. And we want to have a bridge that's different. It didn't sound like a key change, right? But all of a sudden that F almost sounds like a resolution. So it's not really a key change, but it's an interesting element you can add. And speaking of keys, we'll talk about key change, the secret to the key change. So all you have to do is play the 5 of the next key to transition. So basically, let's say we're in C major and we want to get to D. And we want to get to D major. So what's the 5 of D? 5. So let's have a C chord progression. Let's add the 5 of D. Now we're in D. Let's add the 5 of E. Now we're in E. Interesting. 5 of F sharp. Progression is the minor to major chord progression. So essentially, a lot of these are really just concepts that you can apply to pretty much any chord progression, but I'm also giving you underlying chord progressions underneath. So this is one of my favorite songs. So in the verse, they're in A minor. What they do is they go from A minor to A major in the chorus. So just because you're in A minor doesn't mean you can't add a little bit A major. You got minor 1, major 6, minor 4, major 5. Then you have major 1. And then second. Different. Now for this one, I'm going to apply 2 concepts. C major 7. Then we're going to go to C dominant. All that means lower the 7th. Then we're going to go to 4. Now we're going to have that sharp 4 diminished. And the second concept is the cadential 6-4, a diminished sharp 4. All that means we have 4 in C major is F. So raised 4, diminished. All that means you're going to take the regular chord, you're going to lower the 5th, and you're going to lower the 3rd. Then the cadential 6-4. All that means you have 5 in C major is G. Instead of 5, we're going to have the 6 and the 4 of that chord. So 4 and 6. Then we're going to resolve it to the normal chord and into 1. You've probably heard that cadence like a million times. So we're going to combine these to create a really interesting resolution. So we'll have major 1, dominant 1, 4, sharp 4, and then we'll have cadential 4. So add random, not random, but interesting chords like that, if you add interesting chords like that, just make sure you resolve it with a strong resolution. So that's an example of a really strong one, where you have because that to our ears like, what did you just do there? But the only reason it's not a mistake, as they say in jazz, there's no wrong notes, only unsure notes. So as long as you resolve it, you're good, brother. Now I'll give you a few variations of one of my favorite chord progressions. This is going to be a sadder progression. It's called the lament progression. So, this is called the lament progression, but I made some tweaks. So, the original lament progression, you have major 1, lowered 7, lowered 6, 5. I'm going to make it a little sadder. We're going to add some minor. Change 1 to minor. Change that 5 to a minor 4. And we're going to go an octave higher. So the variation I added, basically we're going to have that minor 1. Then we're going to keep that lowered 4 in there on the B flat. So that's one variation. And that's an example of how just turning something from major, one of the chords, or two of the chords, to minor, makes it a completely different feel. Now we're going to do a chromatic progression. I'm going to start in A minor, saddest key in all time. All I did, made that minor 1. I'm going to do an interesting thing here, right? So that's actually E. That's actually the 5. We're going to do an inversion. Explain this, but basically an inversion. In that E, we're going to take that G sharp and put it on the bottom instead of. So we have, see some inversions. So this is another concept, voice leading, where instead of, we're just going to go a half step lower. So we're just going to create that chromatic chord progression. And this is something I mentioned earlier, right? So basically, that's just E major to E minor. We mentioned that earlier, but of course we're inverted, so it's going to be E major, E minor. Now we're in D major, D minor. So that's that major to minor. Or we could just do F if we want to. But then we're going to have that cadential 6/4. E. If you want to make it really weird, add that. So yeah, this video is more like basically concepts. So you have, now we understand basic chord progressions. Before you decide to try this on your own and hit those piano keys, make sure you hit that like button. Really helps me out. I know for sure that you're going to need some awesome warm-ups before you really get into playing awesome songs and chord progressions. So if you want to learn about the best warm-ups to use, make sure you watch this next, and I'll see you there.